Hi everyone, welcome to another Broken Meeple show. I'm Luke Hector, and if you like what you see, please remember to leave a like and a comment. It means the world to me to know that you appreciate the content. Well, I got my tablet. You already gave me some good comments about the first batch of this top 100. We're basically continuing it with my 90 through to 81. You want to know about the background to this list and how I compile it? Well, then go watch the previous video because that's kind of the point. For now, we're just going to get cracking. So without further ado, here's my 90.
Get on with it.
My number 90 is probably one of the best looking co-ops I've ever seen. I mean, this is kind of Elf Creek Games' shtick now, and that is Atlantis Rising. This is a reprint of an old game that didn't get a lot of buzz, and it essentially was you were like trying to save Atlantis from sinking, but at the end of the day, it's going to sink. You can't do anything about it, so you build this giant contraption device thing. I don't know, insert sci-fi reference here, to escape, to travel, to take Atlantis through a giant portal and get out. Basically, get off the flooding island. That's kind of the deal. And the idea is that you are sending workers to different areas of the island to get the resources that you need to build the various parts, but as you go there, it's kind of a push-your-luck system where a deck of cards floods the island, and if your guy gets flooded, then it doesn't get to do its action, but then if you move further up the island, you don't get to do the action as well, so it's kind of like, how far do I really want to go there? It's a very simple co-op game at the end of the day, and I certainly don't want to play it with too many players. But it's got a pretty good solo mode, works fine at 2, and I enjoy it with, say, 3, maybe maximum 4 players. I think it's good, but it's beautiful as all get out. I mean, you put the playmat down with the tiles on top, and it is a thing to behold. I know I never played the original game, but when I played this one, I thought, this felt to me like a classic co-op. Something like on the region of Forbidden Desert and all stuff like that. It just felt like something that deserved to be recognized as one of the easy co-ops that you could get new players in, because it's really not that difficult a system when you think about it. It's a little bit more fiddly when you start throwing in the solo and the 2-player variants, but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward affair, and definitely from what I can see, an improvement over the original. You've just got to discuss with everybody where you're going to go on this island. You've got the push-your-luck aspect. The device parts that you build all have like different powers that you can gain, so when you mix and match different parts, you create a kind of a different experience. It's a very solid thing, probably the best thing that Elf Creek has put out. It dropped 20 places from my 70, but yeah, that's not a huge deal. It's just the fact that I haven't really played it as much often. But the more I talk about it, the more I want to get it to the table again. That's my 90, Atlantis Rising. My 89 has dropped to 88, one whole place, which means it's garbage. It's absolute garbage. Oh my god, it's going to fall off the list. Nah. Although, some of you out there are going to claim this is garbage because apparently it's now the popular thing to hate on this game. Let's forget the fact that it brought a ton of people into the hobby. Let's forget the fact that people from Germany actually sort of thought, you know what, these games could be cool. Why don't we export them worldwide and see what happens? Yeah, I still like Catan. Deal with it. Catan is still one of my favourite games to play. Now granted, there is a caveat with this. I won't play Catan in its base set only. That hasn't got enough stuff in it. But I like it when you start using the spin-offs and throwing in extra bits. I mean, I'm okay with things like Cities and Nights, and I know that's a favourite for many. It's not my favourite, and the Explorers one was fine, but personally I think that you just shove in Seafarers, you already have a pretty good game. Throw in some of the elements from Traders and Barbarians, like the Harbour Master and the Fish, combine that with Seafarers in the base game, and you've got my prime way to play Catan. But I like throwing in some of the other spin-offs, like the weird caravan trading and some of the other special rules from those expansions, just to kind of beef up Catan and give it a bit more variety. Yeah, I know, base set Catan is probably done and dusted at this point, but with these inclusions, I really still enjoy just the simplicity. Well, here's my map, roll a die, get resources, and I suppose a lot of it comes down to not just how simple the rules are, but also the trading aspect. No game. Very few games get the trading aspect right with players, and this one is one of the simplest things. The classic wood for sheep joke, will always run true, but most simple gateway games don't get trading done well. I think Bonanza kind of does it alright, but personally I prefer Catan to Bonanza. It's still a solid game. I still enjoy it. No, I don't want to play it in tournament fashion. And yes, okay, it's luck, it's got dice in it, what do you expect? But you wrap up the game in about an hour, and pretty much everybody on the planet who's a gamer knows how to play Catan, so the turns are pretty speedy, but even then you've got player interaction with the trading. I still like it. Granted, with extra bits added, but with those extra bits, it still stays pretty consistent on my top 100 at my number 89. As for my 88 though, this one is kind of on the way down, and a lot of it is just because it's a very fragile game that I haven't got to the table in a while, and that is Sheriff of Nottingham, which has dropped 40 places. 40 places. It was in my top 50, now it's struggling to hold on to the top 100. I still really enjoy the game. It's right there, and this is the original version of it, not the kind of weird looking second edition print of it, but the problem is that this one is a fragile game. You play it with the wrong group, or people who aren't willing to bribe or try and be like just role play it up a bit, it can fall flat because it is straight up a line bluffing negotiation game. But you get the right people who want to get sucked into that theme and just go nuts with it, it's hilarious. Some of the best Dice Tower playthroughs I've seen with that game have essentially been where playthroughs of it, especially where Z Garcia is involved. But even with games that I've played, if the right people are playing it, it's hilarious. Everybody making bribes, like I'm going to give you money to open his bag, do not open mine, bluffing into whether you want them to open your bag because you've got goods in there that you want to get compensation for, people playing up the sheriff in all sorts of different guises, and it's not a particularly long game either. Granted, it does need 1 or 2 house rules in it though. Firstly, there's an app with a timer, whatever, just get a timer. You need a timer for the negotiation phase, otherwise the game drags on like crazy. You also need to just ignore the rule about discard piles. The Dice Tower mentioned it in their last video about games with annoying rules. Trust me, it's stupid. The whole idea that you've got 2 discard piles and you pick which discard pile to use, who cares? You're trying to bluff bread past the sheriff. Who cares about discard pile mechanics? It's just have 1 discard pile, you shove a thing on it and go with it. It's just a lot smoother that way. But as I say, fragile, hence has dropped a bit, but I do want to get it to the table at some point again, and usually at conventions it's the best time to do it. But as I say, Sheriff of Nottingham is still hanging on there, and it is still one of my favourite bluffing games. So it's dropped a bit, but I'd like to hope it's not going to fall off the list anytime soon. My number 87 has dropped, quite a few places in fact, 32 places from 55, and a lot of that is mainly because I pretty much only play this solo, and not often. And a lot of that is just because there's another game, spoiler alert, I mean come on, you know it's coming, that's better than this one, that is higher up on the list. This one is Imperial Settlers from Ignacy Trzewiczek and Portal Games. Still really enjoy this one, but primarily solo. It's basically an engine building tableau game where you take on a civilization and you're drawing cards from a communal deck as well as your own personal deck full of building cards, and you're playing them in such a way, kind of similar to an old game that came out called 51st State, where you're trying to produce resources but then use those resources to trigger abilities or get victory points. First one to get to 25, I think it was, triggers the end of the game, and then you see who wins. The solo mode I found particularly interesting in it, where you're making deals with an AI opponent. But in multiplayer, it can drag on a bit long if you go above 2 players, and that was the slight kicker. Plus, with all the extra expansion stuff included, it wanted you at times to deck build the decks ahead of time. No. I don't want to do that for no engine building tableau game. That's not happening. But solo, I don't mind that too much. And so I decided to go along with that. But I still enjoy the game as a solo mode. It's very smooth, very elegant, and I love the fact that I have got all these different factions to play. They're interesting, they're fun, the artwork's nice and pleasant, but as I say, another game has kind of eclipsed this one, so we'll see how long this sticks around in the collection for, I guess, because how long am I going to want both games around when I think there's one that's clearly superior? But, we'll get onto that in a later part of the top 100.
I hate waiting.
My number 86 hasn't moved. This one's actually the first one that's just stayed put, and that's just a complete coincidence. There's no other reason for that. This is from Bruna Kafala, it's from Days of Wonder, and it's probably one of the more meatier games that Days of Wonder has ever put out, which is 5 Tribes, or should it be 6 Tribes, or should it have originally been called 4 Tribes? I don't know. It's a weird name, because first of all it was up to 4 players, but it had 5 tribes of meeples. Then they threw in an expansion with a 6th tribe, so should it be called 6 Tribes? And then it just got ridiculous at that point. Whatever, it's called 5 Tribes. This is the Mancala meeple mechanic where you're you're picking up different color meeples who all have different abilities, and you're moving them around this grid full of tiles in order to trigger various powers and bonuses and get victory points. You could be collecting sets of different trade goods, you could be just assassinating other meeples, you'd be getting these genies effectively, djinns as you pronounce them, in order to gain special bonuses. It's a really cool, neat and fairly elegant system. It's not particularly complex in rules, but it is a bit of a brain burner to scratch your head in order to figure out what to do. It starts off being relatively kind of basic, not basic, but fairly like, okay, whichever move I do, it's pretty good. But then very quickly the moves start getting limited, and you're really like looking at that board thinking, where on earth am I supposed to go? That'll get me any points, I don't know. And other people will be like, seen it. Wait, what? See what move? And I've seen it. Yep, not telling you. And it's like, people taunt you with that, especially if they're not even included in the game. But it's solid fun. It's pure Euro mechanics. There's no theme in this whatsoever, but the kind of mechanic is interesting when it's done right. And I like the idea that you're looking for these different combo plays. And in a 2-player especially, where you get to have like 2 turns and you could bid on the turn order, you could set yourself up for some really good power plays. Not a game I want to play with 4 very often, because it does drag on a bit, and when they added the 5th player, I think that's the most moronic thing I think they ever did. Seriously, who plays 5 tribes with 5? That's just insane.
5 is right out!
Up to 3 players, this is a really cool game. I wish there was actually an official solo mode for it, frankly. I wonder if there is. No, I don't believe there is. But as I say, 5 tribes, still really cool. Hasn't had a few plays, hence it's still remained fairly low on the list. But when it has come out, or when I've joined other games, it's like, this is a good, refreshing Euro that I haven't played in so long, and I still remember why I like it so much. So that's 5 tribes staying true at 86. My number 85 is the Vital Lacerda Eagle Griffin game that has eclipsed Vinhos for me. Not to do with the theme. Both of them are thematic games, although this one is more thematic if you teach someone like a half-hour history lesson before you play the game, because otherwise it will make no sense. But this one mechanically I think has just become more enjoyable than Vinhos for me, and that is Lisboa. It scares the living daylights out of people when you show them this game though. You've got this very sort of stark but beautiful looking blue and white board where a lot of the areas kind of blend together. As I know, it's part of the theme, but still, it's a little bit weird from a graphic design perspective. But then you have to show people basically a giant menu screen full of like reference aid points. It's like, wow, seriously, it's a complex game. There's no denying that. But mechanically, I'm just really kind of liking this one more than Vinhos. Vinhos is cool, but this one, I just felt that card play is really like singing to me right now. The idea that the cards are multi-use, and you know me, multi-use, love multi-use. You decide whether I'm going to play it in my portfolio board, and whether I play it above or below the board has ramifications, but then also like playing it to the court and getting one of the advisors, and then the advisors have all got multiple actions that are associated with them, but they require goods in order to get them on your side. Do I have the goods? The whole building the buildings and the grid is kind of, it's fine, it's mechanical, it's Euro-y. You know, yes, that's thematically how the streets kind of look there, although to be fair, I have never been to Lisboa, I've never been to Portugal. I know that the Vital does Lyricon or something, Lyricon? I don't know, maybe I should give that one a visit at some point, maybe, and combine that with a sightseeing trip around Portugal. But the game itself, I love that card play mechanic, and honestly, yeah, the grid building system is more a means to an end to get points. I'm there looking at my cards thinking, oh, I fancy playing this one here, but if I play it there, I'm going to play this one later. And then you look at the cards on display and it's like, well, I'll play this, and oh, I get this juicy card here. And it's like, that card play is just really the best thing I love about this game. And it's already a good, thinky game with a lot of little player powers that you can grab from the clergy tiles and that. It's a mammoth to teach, seriously. Look at Paul Grogan's video and use that to help you learn the game, because it is not going to be an easy ride otherwise. But yeah, it's my third favourite Lacerda game. What are the 2 that have beaten it? Well, most of you know, but for the rest of you, you'll have to wait and see. My number 84 has dropped from 76, so only about 8 spots, and this is one of the safe party games that usually works in every situation. I love the picture card aspect that Dixit started. Dixit is still a nice, sort of, I'd say calm, family fun party game, even though it can lead to some arguments at times, but in a fun manner. but I love the picture card thing. The idea that all these images that are kind of like, you know, stuff that Tim Burton would like come up with on his off days, and the idea that you're trying to interpret these pictures. You're giving clue words about the pictures and trying to get other people to not all guess it right, but some to guess it right. So it's really hard to come up with effective clues. But I love looking at these pictures and trying to get in the person's head and like, what are they trying to say here? How does this, like, mongoose riding a turtle with armor into battle against a giant spaceship? It's like, how does this work? How's this supposed to relate to your clue word, tin can? I don't know, it's a bad example. It's kind of the same thing I get from Codenames. Codenames pictures, I'm not the biggest fan of Codenames, spoiler alert, it's not on the list. But pictures I don't mind because you can come up with a lot of different clues to relate to a picture. A single word, however, is very restrictive. Here, it's the same sort of deal. You can come up with all sorts of clues to go with these pictures. It's a case of whether you're blatantly obvious or whether you're a little bit more cryptic. I tend to lose every single game of Dixit I play though, because I try to give people too much benefit of the doubt, thinking that, oh, they're being clever and cryptic with these clues, and then it's literally the most obvious thing ever, and it's like, seriously, come on. And then I come along, I try to be too clever, and then people don't figure it out. It's like, that is the problem I have with this game, like, never been able to win it. But I still have a good amount of fun doing it. I've had some great stories with it in my time. It's a classic. There's so many expansions for it now, and you can even mix the cards with various other picture card games, some of which we may or may not be seeing a little further on the list. But yeah, still love it a bit. Dixit, definitely one if you want a nice, safe family party game. Kind of a bit of a trend with these numbers actually. Lisboa dropped 7 places, Dixit dropped 8 places, and this one, Legendary Encounters an Alien deck building game, has dropped 9 places. That's the end of this weird trend that the numbers have given, but I like the Legendary series, but I gotta admit this is the only one I will play now. I have actually burnt off Marvel Legendary. Not like fully, I would still like to play it every now and again. I've still got a ton of it in the other room, but I have not picked it up in so long because the setup and takedown takes ages. There's way too many cards for it. It is bloated, and so I have not bought any more sets for it for a good year or two now. And like I say, I got no way to sell it. There's too many cards there. I mean, who's going to buy a bunch of cards with no box from a giant crate that I've got? I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe I should put it on eBay at some point. But Legendary Encounters Alien is still the one I get behind. And you could kind of lump Predator in with this as well, because they're effectively the same game with some minor tweaks. But Alien is the king. The king. Oh, the one deck builder that I can talk about that gets theme right. Theme in a deck builder is so hard to do, but in Alien it makes sense. The Chestburster card. You get a face hugger, and if you don't kill it quick enough, Chestburster card in your deck. Goes into your discard pile. Then it goes into your deck, and when you draw it, bleh, you know, it comes out and you die. I keep saying it is the best way you can die in any deck building game, or any game period. I've never seen anything done so thematically well in deck building, and the rest of it is still pretty thematic. The aliens and all the cards come out face down, so you don't know what they are until you scan it. It's just like having that motion sensor thing going around. I love the Alien franchise, sort of. You know, I love the original film. It's still, I think, the best horror film ever made, and I still love Aliens because it is one of the best action films ever made. After that, yeah, right, whatever. But, you know, I used to play all the PC games, Alien vs. Predator, like all those PC games were some of my favorites I love to play. Love being the alien, like just leaping around walls and trying to sneak up on people. It's like, you know, stuff like that.
Don't ever do that again.
What on earth was that? But yeah, this is still a great fun deck builder. I pull it out every now and again. It's sitting again with no box, you know. This is the problem with buying those wooden crates. It's kind of one of my regrets, shall we say, in terms of accessory buying. But this is the one Legendary game where I'm like, keeping this one. This and kind of Predator to go along with it. I've got Firefly, but I can't remember the last time I played it because frankly the artwork sucks.
I swear by my pretty floor bonnet, I will end you.
Even worse than that one than any other Legendary game. I got no interest in the X-Files, even though I'm a James Bond fan. I got no interest in buying a James Bond one, you know. And like I say, Marvel, I love Marvel, and I haven't played that one in ages. But the Alien one is the one that is definitely going to stick around, and so far it's hanging on strong at my number 83. Now, before I get on to my 82, I forgot to mention about any debuts or anything like that. Well, strangely enough, no debuts on this section of 10. And one game that has returned to the list. Yes, this is the second of the 2 games that has returned, and that is Civilization: A New Dawn from Final Fantasy Games, or Fantasy Flight Games. Why do I keep thinking it's Final Fantasy? But this one has returned because of the expansion. Yeah, in its base set form, it fell off the list, and I thought I still enjoy it, but it had limitations. The expansion fixes a lot of those limitations though. You pretty much want to buy this expansion from the get-go, incorporate it, and just use it from that point forward. I think I mentioned it in my top 10 essential expansions video that I did, and I stand by it. This one completely rejuvenates how caravans and military work, and I think it works better here. It now has you actually exploring the map, and it's not pre-made. You've got developments, which developments that you can do as part of your city, which is a bit like sort of airlifted from Civilization 6, I would say, the Steam Sid Meier's classic. And it's also got an expanded action board that you use, more nations. It's got so much cool stuff in it that I will not play Civilization: A New Dawn without it. It really is that essential. But with that expansion included, the game got a lot more fun. It felt more dynamic, it felt like it was easier to sort of tell what target to aim for, that all the different nations added to the variety, and of course, actually exploring the map actually felt like you were doing an exploration game, as opposed to having the map preset and you just go along to where you want to go. It was such a big improvement. Now, certainly it's a bit hard to unteach yourself half of one game and to then teach yourself the other half of the expansion. It was a little bit of a transition problem, but if you're just coming into it new, I say get the expansion and just fold it in and don't even look back. It will definitely be better for you in the long run. But I really enjoy this Civ game. You know, I enjoy it more than the 2010 version that they put out, mainly because it's less complicated and it's shorter, despite the fact that I enjoy both games. But that action board mechanic is really cool. The idea that you've all got the same actions, but you level up your cards in terms of technology, much like the Sid Meier's games, and then you sort of let the cards move along this action, this row, and the idea is that the further up the row it goes, the more powerful the action is. It might allow you to move across more types of terrain, or it might get you more money, or you might level things up quicker. So you've got this thing of, well, I can't do the action for a while, but it will get powerful when I do trigger it. But then if I need to do a lot of this action in a row, I can do it, but it's going to be weaker. And it's such an interesting choice, and not something I see in a lot of other games. I would like to see this mechanic replicated elsewhere. But yeah, with the expansion, it's now come back, and I hope to get more plays of it and see if it can rise even further up the list. It really was pretty solid. So welcome back to Civilization: A New Dawn at 82. And for my 81, to wrap up this segment, it's dropped 2 places, whoop-de-doo, it was 79, now it's 81. I'm actually starting to have a bit of a keener interest in trick-taking games now. Recently, I did a little thing where I mentioned about my first impressions of Fox and the Forest Duet, and I thought that was a really charming little trick-taking game. And I used to do trick-taking games as a kid, and I enjoy the mechanic, but I just haven't come across many games that I think do the mechanic justice. But then they've not necessarily been keepers, in more of an accurate sense. But I'd still enjoyed them, and now I'm thinking maybe I should go and revisit a few. And Fox and the Forest the duet version was one of them. I'd like to play the non-competitive version, see what that's like. But this is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, whatever the tagline is. And frankly, you could substitute this with Mission Deep Sea or whatever the new one is, because frankly, the games are 95% identical. Pick your theme and go with it, space or underwater exploration. But this is a really ingenious and innovative trick-taking co-op game where your players have to get tricks in certain orders. A certain player needs to win this particular card, and then this person needs to win this particular card, and you've got to do it in types of order. It depends on the mission you're doing, and as you go up in difficulty, all sorts of weird effects come into play and different requirements, and it gets really, really hard. Not to say the game is easy typically, but you can't communicate. And normally those sort of games put me off. I mean, I can't stand the mind or the game. But this one does it well. You've got a limited bit of communication with a token that tells you whether you're the highest, this is the highest card in that suit, lowest, or the only one. But because people understand how trick-taking works, play a card, follow the suit, winner, highest card wins the trick, and these ones trump. Such basic rules of trick-taking that people are generally well aware of at this point. And so when you combine it with the co-op faction, it's not It's not trying to teach somebody a completely new game. You're just basically adding on to familiar concepts. But with the limited communication, it's not just a luck fest. You have educated reasons why someone would play a card. I can tell that Dave over there needs that green 4. Susan to my right has just played the green 3, when it's like, well, hang on a minute, if she's played that, then she must think that means she hasn't got that green 4, which means he must have it. Which means I need to make certain that I play a green 2 or 1 so that he can play the green 4 and therefore win the trick. You start being able to do that kind of thing in your head, and even if you get it wrong, you at least still had an educated reason why you were thinking that way. It's not just like the mind where it's literally just...
Well, we're waiting.
36. Oh, we lost. Oh, woe is me. God, I hate that game. But, you know, this one works. Really ingenious. It's on my shelf. Will I get Deep Sea? Maybe. I mean, frankly, like I say, they're both pretty much the same. I'll probably get it just to have it for completeness. But honestly, I don't see why I need to own both. But whichever one you get, doesn't matter. Space or the sea one, this is a fantastic, innovative game that is definitely worth having in your collection. Gateway level, really solid. The Crew, Quest for Planet 9, and 81. Whew! And there we go. Whew, I've had to deal with a lot of noisy neighbours on this video, so there's been plenty of a stop and start with the camera. But yep, great to talk about another 10 games that I really enjoy. On the next section, it's pretty much the same as this one, really. It's 9 games you've seen before, but 1 debut. So a new game has met the top 100, and you'll find out about it in the next episode. But yeah, for now, I got other things to do, so hopefully I'll be able to edit this one and get it out to you guys soon. So that's it for me on this video. If you like what you see, as a reminder, please remember to leave a like and a comment. It means the world to me to know that you appreciate the content despite being a small creator. Don't forget that the channel is sponsored by Zatu.co.uk. See if there's a hole on your shelf that needs filling, and consider visiting the website to fill it up with another quality game, perhaps one of the 10 that I've mentioned here. And if you want to check out the last segment of the top 100, you can check it out here, or if you want to check out the last comparative top 100 I did, then check out the start of that list as well. Until next time, remember as always, regardless of where it appears in my top 100, it's still only a game. Bye for now.